Paulette, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can. We're good? Okay, we will call the meeting to order. This is the time and place for the regular school board meeting of September 19th, 2022. Welcome to those of you joining us in person. Welcome to anybody tuning in on the live stream or watching at a later date or time. We'll start with introductions this evening. Board members here this evening to my right, Zach Wall and Bonnie Lowry. To my left, Karina Hernandez, Sarah Faltis, and Leah Stanley. Here at the center table, Dr. Theron Schutte, the superintendent of schools, and I am Sean Heitman. Our board secretary, Paulette Newbold, is joining us through the wonders of technology. And also our student board reps this evening are all here. Natalie Andrade, Jackson Eisenbarth, Abraham Madrigal Farias, and Yesenia Alvarez Zamora. And sneaking in just after the bell, Jan McGinnis. Couple of other housekeeping items. Anybody who's here to give public comment or to speak to a particular agenda item, we have a pink sign-up sheet on the speaker's table. Please understand that per board policy, board members will not respond to any comments made in order to comply with open meetings laws. Please also be aware that Iowa law prohibits discussing specific employees of the district or their job performance. With that, would everybody please join me in reciting the mission of the Marshalltown School District? We develop learners who have the knowledge, skills, and positive mindset to successfully pursue a meaningful future through personalized learning experiences. And please stand as you're able and join in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any amendments to the agenda?
There are. Dr. Ryan.
Hi, just a quick amendment on the lane change document that we have for this evening. There was an error in for Hillary Klein. We fixed that and it's highlighted in yellow uploaded there. So just one tweak there. BA 15 to MA. Thanks.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
Which one of you guys was that? Okay. Lowry, Faltis, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries 7-0. Adam?
Good evening. I know. Good evening, everyone. So tonight, for recognition, we have Susan Fritzell, XLP retired, I believe. Officially retired? Oh, no? Oh, why did I think that? Not retired, very much still working for MHS XLP program, and Leticia Herrera, one of her students. Leticia and Susan were able to partner up on the National History Day Summer Institute which required a lot of research and a trip out to Hawaii this summer. So they're here to talk a little bit about that and how they benefited from that experience. So you guys can come on up.
Want to show our slides?
Oh, yeah.
That's the fun part. So we have to show you a few photos of our trip, if you don't mind. But Adam said 5 minutes, so we're trying to do it fast. This project was called Sacrifice for Freedom. It was sponsored by National History Day and the Pacific Historic Parks. We were 2 of 15 teacher-student pairs who were selected from all over the United States for this program. Next. When we received notice of this, we were real excited. Free trip to Hawaii, yay. But what I learned was so much more than just getting to Hawaii and seeing palm trees and beaches and beautiful sunsets. So in this picture right here, we had just arrived after multiple hours on the plane. And so that was the beginning, but it really wasn't the beginning because we had just spent 7 months researching and learning about the World War II in the Pacific. And also we had to select a silent hero. We chose someone from Marshalltown who had died in the Pacific. His name was Eugene Stegman, and we had been researching him and his story for the last 7 months. And it was fortunate that his family lived in Marshalltown, and we really got to know Mike, his nephew, very well. But really got to know Eugene Stegman well, too. And so this whole experience really became very meaningful for us because of this. Next.
All right. So on our first day, we went to the island of Oahu, where the capital Honolulu is. And on our first day, we got to climb up not a volcano, which is often categorized as, but it's actually a vent Diamond Head, a national park. And here there were barracks that soldiers would look over the coast of Oahu to look for enemy ships, for enemy airplanes coming by.
Next. So that day gave us an overview of the geography of the island of Oahu, but we also learned about the history, and we got to go to the Bishop Museum, had some great tour guides, learn about the history of Hawaii, the culture of Hawaii. That's a statue of one of their gods. And in the evening, the kids, of course, we had free time, and they wanted to walk up to Waikiki. So we were at Ala Moana, but we got to walk up to Waikiki, and there's their statue of Duke, the great surfer. Next day.
On day 2, the morning, we got to go to the Pacific Historic Parks, where the USS Arizona is laid to rest. Here, we got to take a boat ride out to Pearl Harbor Bay. And the memorial is very beautiful, and there's gaps that look down onto the ship Arizona. During this, we also got to memorialize the soldiers who perished within Pearl Harbor. We got to give 4 leis out to them, with 3 other students and I giving them leis. And then also we got to throw flowers into the ocean along for the people who perished during Pearl Harbor.
And then later in the afternoon, we're still in Pearl Harbor, but we toured the Pacific Fleet Museum, which is the submarines. And that was really eye-opening to me. World War II submarines were not the biggest or the greatest probably to be on. On the bottom are the torpedo vents. The kids are crowded into their little mess hall. So it just gave us a real view of what life must have been for those submariners. And then?
So the USS Missouri was a battleship used during World War II, and it is most famously known for being the surrendering point of World War II. This is where the Japanese would officially surrender in World War II. There is also a plaque here that officially states where they surrendered. The telegram room that you can see right in the middle, that is where they got the first telegram on where the Japanese wanted to surrender. Here we would also do a ceremony taking down the flag, the United States flag, and then the next morning we would stay on the Missouri for 1 full night. The next morning we would raise the flag all over again.
So next, after sleeping over on the Missouri, we woke up, and actually it wasn't that bad. Those bunks were hard and narrow, but we did it. We're still in Pearl Harbor. We're actually on the naval base, so we had to have special clearance. So while we're still on the naval base, we saw the Oklahoma Memorial, another kind of sobering spot, and then we toured the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum. That bunker or hangar for the planes up there still has the bullet holes and the blown out glass from the Pearl Harbor attacks. And down below, the aviation plane, that's our silent hero, Eugene Stegman, was a pilot, a naval aviation pilot. He flew off of islands, but that was very close to the same plane he flew. So that was really meaningful to us. Then in the afternoon, we had a real special experience. Tours don't usually happen at the Defense Department's POW MIA accounting agency, which is the forensic science that goes behind trying to identify the identities of the dead who have discovered in mass burial graves, et cetera. So again, that was a real sobering experience, but we learned a lot about the research and the science. It's history science, but it's also forensic science that goes behind accounting for the missing. Next.
This has to be one of my favorite places that we went to because it was so culturally historical. But here is the Iolani Palace, which before it was overthrown by the United States government, you can see on the far right that was one of her, which is kind of blocked, but you can see that this was one of the first Hawaiian great leaders, King Kamehameha the Great. He was the first leader and one of the greatest who would unionize all 7 islands into the great nation of Hawaii. And the Iolani Palace is most famous for the house arrest of Queen Liliuokalani, which was the last queen before she was overthrown by the United States government.
Next. So the final day was the culminating activity. We had, researched our silent heroes for 7 months. We had just gone for the last 5 days to see the sites where these people had fought, or we were living their lives. And now each student was able to tell their story through a eulogy. So we were at the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific in Honolulu. Letty read her eulogy. Afterwards, every teacher-student pair walked out into this huge cemetery to find the place that their silent hero was remembered. We were in the Court of the Missing. Court of the Missing. And there's Eugene M. Stegman's name engraved. We had American and Hawaiian flags that we're bringing back to his family, who are all getting together with next week during Oktoberfest, because a lot of the Stegman family are coming back to Marshalltown. So really quite meaningful and sad. But go ahead. Want to say anything about that one?
So after doing almost doing 7 months of research, I feel like I had almost a personal connection, even if I never met this wonderful person, but it felt like you had almost a connection with them. And after going to Hawaii, finding their name engraved, it kind of came in full circle. And it's kind of hard to explain if you don't have the process of it, if you don't know their story. So it was beautiful to just see the whole process and to see coming full circle around and then actually being where they were once.
Now next. You want to finish this one?
All right. So on the same day of the eulogies, the next day, because many people were from many different places, the other 15 student-teacher pairs, so many of them left Hawaii in the morning, but our plane flight was at 11 at night. So we got an extra day in Hawaii, and it's absolutely the most beautiful place I've ever seen. We got a tour on the surf bus. You can see that beautiful bus right there. And we got to travel all around Oahu, about half of the island of Oahu, and do many wonderful things.
So we did get a little snorkeling in and
Yeah.
kayaking, and yeah. So we did the Hawaii things finally. But really, you know, what the experience really taught me was you can learn history by reading textbooks and, you know, reading about the battles. But this brought history really home because there were real people in that war, and there's still families that are impacted by that war. And I mean, most of you probably have a father or grandfather or a cousin or someone who fought in World War II. And so that personal side of things even just made history so much more relevant to us. And yeah, any questions?
So have you had a chance to talk to the Stegmans since returning?
Yeah, would you like?
Mike?
So we kept really close contact with Eugene's grandson, well, not grandson,
Nephew.
but nephew, Mike Stegman. And he has so much information that we found useful during this research. So his brother Eugene's brother was alive, but he recently passed away in March. So we had so much research from just him. We had notes from him. We had medals from him, photos from him. So it was such a good contact that we had.
Yeah, so we'll meet with them next Sunday, and we'll bring those two flags. And what we didn't say, too, is Letty also wrote a profile that's going to be published on the Silent Hero webpage, so it will be permanent. And so we'll give each of his family members a copy of that, too. And they're very thankful that we're doing this. So their uncle is not forgotten.
Nice.
Thank you for sharing, and nicely done.
Yeah,
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
thanks.
So Al, if you could come forward. So I'd asked Al Paxson to come to tonight's board meeting. I think as all of you have been in mourning along with me, Al had submitted his resignation after 27 and a half years of serving as our auditorium manager at Marshtown High School Auditorium, aka Marshtown Community Auditorium, Marshtown Performing Arts Center now. I'm sure in addition to some name changes, you've seen a lot of things over the years. The culture. Al's been unbelievable for our school district, but bigger than that, he's been unbelievable for the community with all of the activities and events and nights away from home and weekends and all of that kind of stuff. So he's going to be, as you can imagine, very difficult to replace, but we're going to do our best. And I know he'll help us with the transition. Al is going into another career now with the city of Concord.
Yeah, I've been for 16 years helping out there in summer, so I kind of know what's going on.
So you'll be full-time with
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
So anyway, I usually reserve this for the end of the year, but you didn't get that luxury. So I would like to present Al with the Superintendent Star Award for service to our district, high-quality service to our district. We'll get a picture and then let Al say a few words. At all.
I know.
All right. Say a few words.
I just appreciate, it's 27 years of, it's time to move on. The opportunity was awesome, but, it's had fun. It's got to the point where something else is turned it.
Well, good luck.
Nice weekends, watch my kids' sports and stuff like that, so. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Moving on to the consent agenda, we've got minutes from the September 6th board meeting and the September 13th special board meeting. Dr. Ryan, any items of note in personnel?
No, sir.
Looking then at interagency agreements, there's a master services agreement with Code HS Inc., a service agreement with Train, a claims release agreement for the repair of the Franklin Elementary sewer line, an agreement with Alliant Energy to raise firm demand rate, a Mastery Connect professional development virtual session agreement, and then teacher, paraeducator, registered apprenticeship agreements with Grinnell, Eldora, New Providence, BCLUW, West Marshall, East Marshall, Iowa Falls, GMG, Montezuma, and Marshalltown. Looking at open enrollments, there are 8. Almost all of them continuations. Paulette, anything to note in bills?
No, sir.
We've got the School Improvement Advisory Committee members for the 22-23 school year. And then Paulette, anything to note in the financial report?
No, not at this time. Hopefully at the next meeting, we'll have a year-end presentation for you.
Okay. Questions about any of the items on the consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
McGinnis, Lowry, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0. Nobody's on the pink sheet, which means you guys are up.
There you go. Bring up 2 chairs. We need, no, next week. What does it say?
Whenever you're ready.
All right, well, the school year so far has had a pretty good start. Everybody's getting pretty excited, especially in the high schools, to kind of continue with their previous passion projects, whether that be sports or clubs, organizations. They're all pretty happy with it. Sports and band started right away. Football had a win in the beginning of the year for a football game. XLP students in the Marshalltown High School are starting up their National History Day projects, Science Fair projects, and Marathon. They're choosing activities in accordance to their interests. Incoming freshmen are starting to figure out what they're into, and seniors and juniors are just trying to keep on going and figure out how to expand their passions. There were also a few people in the Marshalltown High School who were a bit discontent with the new closed campus lunch. There was almost an immediate action to try and sway the school to provide open campus lunch, at least for seniors. And as we can see in the second slide, there are a couple more details of what a student has shared to be. They are asking for open campus lunch, at least for seniors. They do feel that since they are of older age, that they deserve the freedom. And mostly, we don't know how far this petition has gone. This screenshot was taken almost immediately when it was brought up. We don't know the current progress of it yet, and we don't know if it's been presented or will be presented to the principal.
Alrighty. At MLA, we have a food pantry like towards the corner of the school. It usually provides food and snacks and drinks sometimes for students in need. And it's a really good help for students, for me as well, because it keeps our minds working in case we need something in our systems. Like some kids don't eat breakfast, they usually grab something from there, and they'll just go throughout the day. And then more kids have been coming to MLA this year than we've recently seen. Approximately 34 out of the 100 students have been there are new. 6 out of the 34 are taking dual credit any classes. And some students, I had the opportunity to ask some students on their purpose of transferring to from the high school to MLA or wherever previous school they were. Some said anxiety, or some said the environment was too big and it was just really tough for them to keep track with all their assignments, all their homeworks, and any projects that they were participating in. And then IJAG, tomorrow, we're going to start planting trees. We're doing it twice, one at 9 a.m. around MLA, and then we're going to go to Rogers at 1 to plant a couple more with a couple students, I believe, from there. And then we're planning on going to Minneapolis on the 27th to hear about different construction jobs that they are having to do. We're still planning more trips and more activities, more speakers throughout the school year, so we don't have much planned there. And then for seminar and book club, we usually do both. Book club covers part of an English core class, and then seminar usually covers only one semester of it. So we have it as, for an example that's coming up is 12A. One seminar will cover that, and then the next seminar, I believe, I don't know when, will cover the other portion of 12A. And then the book we will be starting on Wednesday is Looking for Alaska by John Green. And some of the books that they'll be reading for book club is The Giant Castle, Breathing Underwater, My Sister's Keeper, and We Were All Liars. We Were Liars, I mean.
Okay, so for some of our Bobcat sports, our football team played at Fort Dodge on Friday, and they lost 23-37. It was a pretty close game till about the end, but our team is now 1-3. Boys golf also had a meet on Friday. They finished 5th at the meet. Girls swimming has had a few meets this year too. They've won 2 meets and have participated in 4-ish, is what I've been told. So Tuesday night or tomorrow night they play, or they don't play. They swim at Des Moines North. And our girls volleyball played Gilbert on Thursday, or last Thursday. And they lost in 3 sets, and they have a record of 1-9. And esports started on September 13th as well. I haven't heard much other than they just started on the 13th, but yeah.
Yeah, I think they're just meeting and recruiting because I know the room's still coming together and stuff. So
just to add on top of that, like esports and wrestling has been getting out like the word, the investments the school district has been investing in, of course, and the NVP students are encouraging the younger upperclassmen to start getting involved and recover after the pandemic and start branching out, and it's been very successful recently. Students are being consistent with their activities. The student section is always full, always rowdy, and we're getting a good start.
Yes. Something I forgot to mention on the slideshow, but Lenahan is also starting up their Ricochet program, the Ricochet Leadership Program. So students now have been given the application upon request, and now the little 5th graders and little 6th graders are looking for recommendations. And hopefully they will be starting soon, and I believe 40 students from each grade will be selected to participate.
just out of curiosity, how were you aware of that?
Well, I was in Ricochet, and I have a little sister went into
Okay.
5th grade, and she told me.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yep, very good job.
Questions from anybody before we let them scamper away?
Well, Abraham, I think it's really neat that not only are you guys, I know they had a good day at the high school planting trees today, so I'm confident you guys will as well, but it's really neat that you're also helping with the Rogers planting.
I recently During lunch, I usually like to go to Anson Park to just hang out there. I saw a couple holes there that I believe we're probably going to be using to plant the trees.
Good. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. I guess since they brought it up, do we know why they closed the lunch for seniors?
Prior to the pandemic, we did not have open campus. So, it had been quite some time. So it was a decision the high school administration made. I think, one, to ensure that kids took the opportunity to eat, and two, to prevent, potential problems from all the cars zooming off campus and zooming back on campus. Those were issues way back in the day when I was in school and there wasn't enough room. But that was a decision made by the high school administration, basically returning to the way things were prior to the pandemic.
Okay. I was aware it's gone back and forth a couple times in the time that we've lived in this community, so just curious.
Paulette, do you want to talk to the depository resolution?
Sure. So each year, every school district is required to name the depositories that they will use for the upcoming school year and the maximum deposits that can be at each of those deposits. So we are just doing that for this 22-23 school year. Our main local bank is First Interstate Bank, used to be Great Western, and they were recently purchased by First Interstate Bank. And then we also use Iowa Schools Joint Investment Trust, which yields a little bit better interest rates. So those are the two main banks that we are recommending for this year. And then UMB Bank out of Des Moines is who handles our sales tax revenue bond payments. So I would recommend approval of these three depositories.
Are there any questions for Paulette?
Are we frequently use these same three facilities? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Is there a motion to approve the depository resolution as presented?
So moved.
Second.
I can't tell with you three. You all sound the same. Lowry, Stanley, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Ryan.
All right, this is one of my favorite things to do all year. Can you go to the lane changes, please? Maybe it's, there we go. So this, before you hear the 42 certified staff members who have met the criteria to advance to a different lane, and for those who may be listening and unfamiliar or newer board members, the salary schedule for our certified staff are in lanes, and that's based on your educational attainment. So these folks have moved up a lane, meaning they have achieved a higher level of education, whether that's graduate credits or a graduate degree. And so these 42 folks have worked hard and followed the process, and they are in front of you here to advance lanes. And so we're really proud of them for continuing their education and practicing what they preach and valuing their own education along with their hundreds and hundreds of students. For comparison, last year I think we had 53, so we're down about 11 this year. So 42 are in front of you.
Questions for Dr. Ryan? I would just echo your sentiments. This is one of the nicer things to get to do, to really reward people for continuing their education and practicing what they preach, so to speak. So.
Exactly. And you'll note at the bottom in green, some folks even skipped 2 lanes. So they were extra, or I guess it's not in green, in bold there at the bottom. A few people skipped a couple lanes, so they were really hustling and studying and getting their graduate credit. So congratulations to all of them. And I will note, in case they're listening, that the new contracts will be out soon. The business office is working hard to redistribute the TSS allotment. So actually, every one of our certified staff members will be getting a new contract soon with that. And these folks will have their new lanes reflected on that. So sit tight. Those contracts will be coming shortly. Thanks.
Is there a motion to approve the 22-23 lane changes as presented?
So moved.
Second.
McGinnis Hernandez. That one I got, but your hand was very helpful. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Schutte?
Yeah, so it's my pleasure to introduce a prospective project that we are proposing and we will be wanting to set a public hearing for. Those board members that have been on the board for the past 2 terms will probably remember a year and a half or so ago, maybe closer to 2 years, when we started talking about this opportunity, which is basically the Marshtown High School stadium reconstruction. Most of the stadium is original from back in the 1960s. And we wanted to take advantage after the tornado in 2018 and federal funds flowing into the state for not only recovery from natural disaster, but also for pre-mitigation work that could be done to prevent catastrophes in the future. We worked with FEH to start planning for how we could create a tornado-safe team room. And a tornado-safe team room are basically locker room-like spaces for home and visiting teams that are using the stadium complex. In addition to that, as many of you have probably seen when you've traveled to other stadiums across Iowa, there's new concession stands that are part of this. There's new public restrooms that are part of this. There's a training room for the athletic training department and the student athletes. There's an umpire locker room. Essentially, it's kind of a multi-purpose room, but its primary purpose would be to provide something that we currently don't have at the stadium, which are team rooms for the teams to meet in before, after, or during halftime of matches. So we've been working with both the county and making sure that they had their county hazard mitigation plan updated, which was due to be updated last October and wound up being updated in January, I think. And then we were in a position of being able to submit our grant application for Tornado Safe Room. And essentially, that original grant application was for 95% of the eligible costs of the structure to be covered through the grant, which equates to about it's projected to be about $3.8 million total. 3.4 would be eligible costs, and then the federal government would pay 75%, the state would pay 10% of that, and the local would have a 5% match, which was roughly $500,000. Through federal legislation change this past year and the infrastructure plan, I believe, that President Biden and the legislature put forward, it actually changed that equation to 90% being funded by the federal government instead of 85%. The state of Iowa still intends to put 10% towards it, which would mean all the eligible costs would be fully funded, and the district wouldn't be accountable for that 5% match, only for any costs within that structure that would be deemed ineligible. So of a $3.8 million project, probably, I think we're estimating about $400,000 would be considered ineligible. So that's one part of the project, and quite honestly, that part of the project will likely be contingent on whether we get the grant or not. The grant got held up in process and review through all of those legislative changes, waiting for the federal government to see if the bill passed. Once it passed, figuring out how the financial allocations would work. And then, once all of that got figured out essentially this summer, then we saw some movement with our grant application. We had been sent a request for more information, clarification on what we had submitted, and as of 2 weeks ago, we got that information to the Department of Homeland Security, Emergency Management for Iowa, and they were able to submit that last week. It was actually due by the end of this month, and so our hopes that we'll hear within the next 30 to 90 days whether or not it goes through and gets accepted or not, or whether there's requests for more information beyond what we provided. But essentially, if you look at, that's just a kind of a mock-up of what the structure would look like from different angles. When you're looking at the side with the Bobcats there, that would be looking from the parking lot in, because essentially we're proposing that this structure be placed in the west end zone area, beyond the end zone, not too far from where right now we're walking in the gates. Without having a structure such as this, what they've done in the past is, before and after games, the teams are generally use the roundhouse locker rooms and then come down from the high school there. But during the games, and if there's a delay due to inclement weather or whatever, essentially the visitors go into an undersized storage room that's been turned into a team room adjacent to the existing concession stand, and usually our home team goes into the Morton building that would be across from or adjacent to the softball field. And neither of those situations are ideal for football, certainly, and probably soccer as well. So anyway, that's the story on the team room portion of that project. And Amy, if you'll go back to the MHS PDF, that would be, so you can see where the blue structure is. That's where the proposed team room would go. It's also kind of in similar vicinity to like where the scoreboard is located and stuff. So our proposal, the other part of the proposal, which is primarily what we would be looking at using SAVE funds for, would be a conversion of our athletic field, which is used for football and soccer with boys and girls, to be a field turf field. And that's going to require a wider field than what we currently have. So there'll be wider curves and shorter straights on the track. It's going to require a different track configuration in order to make sure that a regulation soccer field can go in there. And then it's not hard to see from the naked eye that there's desperate need with our home bleachers and with the press box area there, but particularly the home bleachers, those being original bleachers and a lot of movement with the foundation over the years. You can kind of do the wave without waving, when you put your hand up. So it will be a priority definitely to get the home bleachers and press box area addressed, and then hopefully we'll have the capacity also to have new visitor bleachers, and then also a new scoreboard, which we're looking at probably locating on the eastern side of the field opposite where it is right now. And generally the scoreboards that you see at the stadiums are digital and video boards. And so, what we'll be looking at doing if we're given the opportunity to move forward with this project will be prioritizing the absolute needs and the wants if we have the capacity to do it, such that there'll probably be certain portions of it that will be bid as alternates so that the entire project won't hinge on our ability to fund like a digital scoreboard, which could be done later if we needed to, or even the visitor bleachers, which we could probably do some repurposing of what is good with the home bleachers and kind of fix up the visitor bleachers, which isn't ideal, but it could be done in the short term. In addition, there'd be a new digital timing system for the track. There would be storage structure that would be created essentially under the press box behind the bleachers. There'd be new perimeter and internal fencing. There'd be new lighting that would be there, and a new sound system. There'd be a new entrance structure, kind of a gateway as you come in. You'll recall from, just as an example, we've kind of got an entryway type of appearance structure with a tennis court, pickleball complex. We'd be looking at doing something, be a little bit more appealing with the entryway there. And I think that pretty much covers the essence of what we would be looking to accomplish here. The funding, again, with the team room complexes largely would be contingent on our successful acquiring of the FEMA grant. The rest of the project, we believe, can be funded with the available sales tax. And the sales tax that we project to have available for this project are a byproduct of a couple things. One, the high school and Anson air conditioning projects coming in under bid when we had bonded for $10 million. Those bids came in around $8 million. And then after that, we had also learned that we could supplant or repurpose some of the federal COVID dollars for HVAC purposes. So we did use federal dollars in lieu of saved dollars as it related to the high school air conditioning project. We used saved dollars on the Anson project. So that has provided us with the fiscal capacity to be able to do this project if everything goes as planned.
Questions?
So my understanding is the reason you're looking at changing the turf on the football field and changing the configuration is so it can be used for both football and soccer?
Yeah, right now both our football and soccer teams use our stadium complex. The problem is we cannot host anything that would be a state level competition. So for example, a few years back when our boys team was on the road to qualifying for the state tournament, we should have hosted the two of the three matches that led to them going to state, and we couldn't because we don't technically have a regulation field. If it were regulation, you'd be doing corner kicks off the track and things like that.
Okay.
So it'll be a huge benefit for our soccer and football programs. The drainage on those field turf fields is phenomenal. So during times of inclement weather, it's really advantageous to have that. It also will be a huge asset for physical education to be able to use the field during the day. Also the marching band. The nice thing about field turf is you're not going to damage it. It's going to have a length and durability depending on how much it's used. Usually they last for 8 to 10 years is what they'll tell you before you need to refurbish. But we can have community events. We can have other things utilize that field, and it's not going to damage it as with natural turf. We keep people off of it during football season, soccer season, because those sports will tear it up. So we don't have the marching band generally use it. They practice in the parking lot, essentially, that we block off. So none of that would have to happen if we were to make this conversion.
And then as far as maintaining that turf compared to maintaining the grass field, is it kind of a wash or?
Well, cost-wise, it's been determined to be a wash, but the nice thing about it is your expenses are in facility dollars instead of general fund dollars. So right now we pay a lot of general fund dollars for the maintenance of our existing field, for any chemicals that are used on that field, for paint that has to be put on that field before every game, those types of things. And so none of those costs really will exist. There's a special machine, kind of like a small Zamboni type machine that you would see, going across the ice at hockey matches, that goes across the field and basically kind of churns up the rubber pellets that are used, but you only need to do that a few times a year, and it'd be the equivalent of like mowing a lawn.
I don't know much about this turf. I do know there's been some community concern about herbicides and the chemicals we're using on the lawns. And I have no idea from an environmental standpoint which would be better. Do you have any idea?
Well, yeah, I haven't seen any reports on that, so to speak, but obviously there's no chemicals that we would need.
Obviously, it's just what's going into the turf. Okay, actually, I mean, obviously it's an older facility that needs to be updated. The other concern that has nothing to do with football is when we look at these large projects, do we have, you said this funding is coming from, mostly from other sources. What about, I know it's been brought up a couple times, expanding Rogers, either building onto it or adding space there because it's pretty crowded? So do we have any plans for like our middle school or elementary buildings with overcrowding?
Well, we don't have any immediate plans to expand Rogers. When Rogers was expanded the last time, they did build it such that if there was a need or desire that additional rooms could be built on the second floor of that. Again, for the most part, these are all projects that were previously identified kind of in a queue. Miller Middle School will also be something that needs to get some significant attention.
Right. Yes.
But most of those projects are going to require significantly more money than we have available at this point in time if we wish to potentially pursue them without running like a bond referendum. This project can be accomplished with existing dollars that we have available without having to ask the community for more money.
So this is doable and those are not, is really what it comes down to.
Not in the short term, but we have a number of bonds that will be retiring in the next 4 to 5 years that will give us a lot more capacity within the sales tax down the road.
Okay, those make sense to me.
Natalie?
Well, the time that we would do it would be next summer if we're able to proceed with it. So likely at some point in the month of May, which would be prior to soccer and track fully completing, we would need to repurpose those activities to another location to get started on it early enough to get completed, weather permitting, by the end of August. So it's a really tight window. That's a great question. It's a really tight window, and in a perfect world, we'd probably go from mid-May to mid-August. But the way these projects usually run, they like to get started earlier if possible to be able to guarantee like that mid-August completion. But we're already having conversations with other places about using their fields if we're able to move forward on this project in the spring and early summer. And then I've talked to our activities director about making sure that our first home game isn't the first week of the season, that it's at least the second or third, to buy us as much time to get this completed as possible.
Other questions, comments? Okay, so the process here is that we would need to set a public hearing on the proposed use of saved dollars for an athletic facility infrastructure project. That public hearing would be held at the next board meeting on October 4th.
Tuesday, October 4th.
So we need a motion to approve a resolution setting a public hearing for October 4th, 2022 at 5 p.m. and authorizing the board secretary to publish notice of that hearing.
Move to approve.
Second.
Larry Hernandez. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0. And now we're on to policies.
We have one policy which came back as a first reading, 704.4, gifts, grants, and bequests. We did not make any changes beyond what you had seen amended at the last meeting. We simply interjected the value of $250 or more as kind of the threshold for which we bring those before the board for approval and recognition.
Any questions about that policy?
Question coming back to that. If you have a donor that doesn't want the board to know who donated, can they do that?
Yes, we do. We take anonymous donations. Yeah.
Okay.
Other questions? If not, is there a motion to approve policy 704.4 and waive the second reading?
So moved. Second.
Stanley Faltis, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. Motion carries 7-0. And then I think, Jan, these are your policies now, right?
Yes, they are. Okay. Policy 501.7, student transfers out or withdrawals. If a student's parents wish to withdraw or transfer the student from a prior school prior to completing and graduating from the education program, they should notify the superintendent in writing as soon as possible of the decision to withdraw or transfer the student from the education program. Student or parent should present this written notice at the office and receive instructions regarding the return of textbooks, library books, locker equipment, hot lunch tickets, etc. So is this basically consistent with what we've had in the past? I don't know.
I mean, it appears to me that the only changes to the policy are cross-reference and legal references. Is that?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes
So
sense.
the policy looks like it's the same policy that it's been.
It's just with different numbers and titles.
Right.
Okay.
So it looks like it could just be marked as reviewed?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry about this. I've been gone. So, next one, same thing. It's looking like you didn't change anything within the policy except you added the word student at the top, student attendance records. And it states that they're maintained by the district. And the only thing that's changed is the reference number. And then you've got that it's referenced to Iowa Code 294.4, 299, et cetera. So again, I would say mark for review. Does that make sense?
That's certainly fine with me. Is that fine with everybody else?
Yes.
Okay.
And then absence is excused. This one has changed quite a bit. Looks like you've added a paragraph, so I will read the addition. The district believes that traditional in-person school attendance leads to the greatest learning opportunities for students. However, there may be rare and unusual circumstances created by public emergencies declared by state or local officials, which temporarily prevent students from attending traditional in-person school. In these circumstances, the superintendent will have the discretion to make reasonable accommodations for students on a case-by-case basis to attend school through remote learning opportunities within the available resources of the district and as permitted by law. During approved remote learning, attendance will be taken, assessments may be administered, and grades will be count toward the student's cumulative grade point average as if they were attending in person. The provision of special education and accommodations for students who have individualized education programs or Section 504 plans will be determined by each respective IEP or Section 504 team. And I think that's sort of an update from what we did during COVID.
Correct, yeah, and I'm not quite sure why we missed that earlier, but it's a provision that ISB recommends that we have in that policy in the hopefully unlikely event we ever have to go through a public emergency like we did.
So that one will need to come back since it's
Probably,
being
yeah.
amended.
And then
And then 5019E1 looks like it just can be marked as review. Doesn't appear
right,
to be
I
any
don't see any
changes to that
changes
one,
on
Jan?
it. Nope, don't see any.
Okay.
I mean, for the public, what it is a form for requesting remote learning.
Correct, it's just up for review, and so we're not recommending any changes for that.
Okay. Adam?
Good evening again. Just for updates tonight, I wanted to share we did another push for employee recruitment here over the last week. We made a couple of social media posts and we sent a message to our parents who may be looking for their next career opportunity. So what's noteworthy is that we have had a little bit more an uptick in interest in and inquiries into those opportunities, which, over the past couple of months, it's a good thing. It's progress in the right direction with that. So I bring it up because that corresponds with Goal 5 of the Communications and Marketing Plan. And I want to thank Dr. Ryan and Shauna Smith for their help with that. They helped a lot with that push. So. Otherwise, upcoming events, I believe Abraham brought it up earlier. We have Planting Hope tree plantings this week. At today's kickoff was at MHS. There will be one at the MHS Ball Diamond later this week. And Miller Middle School, Rogers Elementary, Hoagland Elementary, and Marshalltown Learning Academy will all have some new trees planted. So that's excellent. Oktoberfest is coming up. We'll have good student and staff presence there, including we've got a Be a Bobcat kind of campaign that will be largely promoted during the Grand Parade on Saturday. So we're really excited for that, and it'll be great to cover it. And hopefully I'll be able to see all of you guys out there. And homecoming game, just another reminder that is the evening of Friday, September 30th against Des Moines Lincoln. So
there'll be lots of activities leading up to that.
Yes, there will be, including all of the traditional festivities going along with homecoming.
Any questions for Adam?
Yes. What kind of trees? You got a list of the trees that are getting planted at all? Or?
I asked for a list. I was not able to get a hold of one today. I did get some examples. A lot of them are oaks, elms, and maples. I did not hear of any ash trees. So. Oh, yes.
Going down at the complex tomorrow afternoon.
White pines.
There are a couple of ornamental. They try to keep nice, clean trees.
Yes.
And actually, the nursery that originally donated the trees or got us the trees upgraded them today. So
Yeah, they did.
several of them that I was expecting to get were a little smaller. We actually got twice our size.
Yeah,
Went
they're
really well today.
they're taller than a person. Most or all of the trees are.
9-footers.
Yeah.
Are you having the classes like elementary kids go out and learn how to use a shovel?
So not quite that young.
Todd, why don't you come to the mic?
Yeah, he's the expert on this one.
Yeah, we were actually augering the holes, our guys, and getting all the site, which worked out probably for the best because then they could focus on, like at the high school today with the kids, they came out, a couple of the Trees Forever members went out and demonstrated, proper planting of a tree, and then we all broke off in groups, and yeah, it was great. I mean, everybody just went right to it, looked like they had a great time, and I bet it took us an hour and a half to plant 15 trees, so if everything goes as well at all the other locations, it'll be great. And it should come right around to, I believe, 114 trees in total that we'll get back.
So the kids have a little bit of experience with it.
Yep, and they're doing it. I think like Hoagland with the elementary, I think they're kind of doing stuff with the class as well.
Okay.
So kind of seeing the benefits of planting trees and all the other good things that can come with doing it. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem.
did have several high school students come out of study. They wanted to help after they heard about the tree planting going on outside the high school. So there were IGI kids and also some kids who were out in the study hall.
Thanks.
Nice. Okay, looking at reminders, our next board meeting will be Tuesday, October 4th. Remember the day change. Bonnie, you've got policies, but I think you already told me you're not going to be there.
I won't be in attendance on the 4th.
Well, someone will take care of your policies.
Thank
for
you so much.
And then note that we are, or there will be committee meetings starting up. SIAC and Equity and other committees are going to start meeting. Committee reports, I'm not aware of anything. There's nothing in the agenda, so. Any items for future meetings? What have we done this evening to improve education for the students in Marshalltown?
I don't know what we've done for improving the education for the students in Marshalltown, but I really enjoyed the presentation from the people who went to Hawaii. That was a neat learning experience.
I think the lane changes is an important thing, right? I mean, the better educated our teachers are, the better education they can give to our kids, right? And rewarding them for continuing their education is a good thing. So that's an important deal as far as I'm concerned.
And then, you know, Adam mentioned that we're starting to get some additional interest through some new campaigns for additional teachers. And I think anything we can do to have more teachers in the classroom to help alleviate the stress that all the teachers have been feeling over the last couple of years, and being able to allow them some of their maybe planning time back and some of those things that have been a struggle with the lack of professional, lack of teachers throughout the district. So.
Yep.
Yeah, the push has really been for all available positions. You know, it's our best chance of getting teachers at this point are probably at semester and for next year, but all of those other positions, people move in and out, just as you saw Mr. Paxson moving out during the course of the year. So it's been encouraging to have an uptick, and I think it's taken all of the obviously the continual PR on it's important, but all of the actions that you have taken in support of us enhancing those positions, whether it be in the hourly rates or the signing bonuses or all of those things make a big, big difference in helping to keep us competitive. So.
I also think the signing of the agreement for our students to enter into the paraeducator training, it's part of growing your own. And we need to really think about what it is that what kind of changes can we make or opportunities can we create to keep Marshalltown folks in Marshalltown and helping them to get to job opportunities that as they're thinking about them while they're still in high school and to move forward.
Okay, if there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
McGinnis, Hernandez, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. We are adjourned.